Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk, and thanks for tuning in, and welcome back to this episode, a tank review of the Tier 6 Pudel, which is a Polish Tier 6 medium tank. It's actually a German tank, we'll get into that, but we'll do an overview, we'll take a look at any tech tree considerations, we'll look at the 3D model, I'll do a comparison amongst other Tier 6 mediums, both premium and a few of the tech tree models, look at my stats and how I've done with it, my setup, and then we'll have a couple examples of gameplay for the Tier 6 Pudel. Let's move on to the overview. This is one of the more interesting historical tanks in the game. As you can see, it is obviously a German Panther, a G model, one of the most widely produced tanks in the war. There was a unit that was re-equipping with these from A models in Warsaw during the uprising, happened to be in town. 3 of these were attacked by the Poles, 1 was destroyed, and 2 were basically immobilized or captured. And they were largely intact. So what they did is they sat around for a few days, and then the Polish decided to go ahead and use them operational. As you can see, they put some Polish markings on them, and they used them during the uprising, which unfortunately was not successful. Eventually, they were immobilized, and they took off the machine guns and used them later on during the fighting. But an interesting tank, a captured tank, and of course it's in the Polish line right here. So as you can see, taking a look at the crew and whatnot, we've got 5 crew in there. This does have a radio operator. We'll talk about that when we get to the tech tree considerations. The other thing to notice about it is obviously it's a Panther, so you've got the same armor loadout as most German tanks. Fairly flat, although this one's at least angled a little bit, much better than a Tiger. Front end, which is good for side scraping. We'll talk about the armor profile in a minute. Pretty good mantlet up here, and very large mantlet on the Panther. And it's big. So just as an example, this is the Italian tank. Look at the difference. Holy cow. The Swedish, the tiny little Swedish tank, even the 34 or the Type 58 or 3485 variants, there's a 3485 variant, is smaller than this thing. Even the Skoda, which is known as a massive tank, appears to be a bit smaller even than the Tier 6 Pudel, even though it's longer. Go over to the giant German tank, the 3001P, the Pudel still has it. So this is a very large Tier 6 tank, but a standard German Panther as far as loadouts go on the way the armor is designed and shaped and all that good stuff. But we'll talk about the specific numbers when we get into that. Let's move on. This is where it sits on the tech tree. Obviously, it's a Tier 6. And unfortunately, the only 2 tanks that this thing's going to support as a premium, as in, hey, I want to train crews and keep them in the particular tank that they're trained for, is going to be the 25 TP and the 40 TP. That is a little bit problematic because neither one of those is an amazing tank. The 40 TP, I have a review on it. Take a look at it. I want to like it, but it just doesn't really work very well. However, the Pudel will train crews, and if you're willing to spend a little bit of gold or silver, you can use the Pudel to train crews for the heavies. Unfortunately, once you train them for the heavy, you can't drop them back in to the Pudel, which does defeat the purpose of the Pudel just a little bit. So other than a collector's tank and an interesting tank, it's a little bit lost on the tech tree as to exactly what its purpose is. It's a decent credit maker though, so and as far as that goes, if you have it and you want to run it as a credit maker, we'll talk about that a little while later, then it's okay for that. If we take a look at this thing for the details, like I said, it's got a crew of 5. The 40 TP has a crew of 4 if that's what you're going to use it to train for, but it's fine. Your radio operator is just going to lag behind a little bit right there if you're going to swap guys back and forth. And as a premium, it has all the top modules, so there's not much else to talk about it right there. So it has a bit of a unique and strange position in the tech tree in that it doesn't really support very well anything on the Polish line. You can make it happen, like I said, with retraining for the heavies. That's what I ended up doing. I had a decent crew in there that I retrained for the 45 TP when I got to it. But that's not something you want to do long term because you can't then drop the 45 TP guys back into the Pudel and train them on your day-to-day grind and playing. So you're kind of stuck with either 25 TP, which is a Tier 5, or the 40 TP, which is an okay medium tank, but doesn't really work the way it's designed. That is all the tech tree considerations. We'll take a look at the 3D model, and here it is up on tanks.gg. You can see it's very well armored for a Tier 6. This is against its own gun. So against its own gun with 135 pen, as you can see right there, 150 penetration. The angled upper plate and even the lower plate is quite strong. The mantlet very strong at 227. We got about 110 effective. and we've got about 111 effective right there. Side scraping is also quite good. You can see that it can side scrape decently. Now remember, this is against a tier 6 gun, and albeit a tier 6 gun with decent penetration for a standard round, but once you start hitting 2, or once you start talking about tier 7 and 8 tanks, they're not going to have very much trouble going through the upper or lower plate. But angling will help, obviously, to increase the effective armor. And like I said, with 50 millimeters of side armor, which we'll talk about in a minute, it is a competent side scraper at tier 6 as a medium. So put all those caveats into there. So you take that with a grain of salt. Don't come out there and say, well, Guido said it's a great side scraper. It is in the right context, and it's quite a bit better than just about any of these other tier 6 mediums. So most German tanks are decent side scrapers with the nice flat sides like this and fairly thick armor even on the sides. And the turret's quite good. So as a hold-down fighter, it's pretty good. Remember, though, it's very, very large. There are some places where it's hard to hide much of it based on the way the rubble piles and things are made in this game. The other side of that coin is that on some of the higher rubble piles, it's tall enough to look over them. So you're going to get the good and the bad with that. But that's basically the 3D model right there. Good, solid armor for a tier 6 medium with all the caveats that are required for that. Move on to the next. Let's take a look at the comparison. You can see that I've got a number of premium tanks up here and then some tech tree tanks to include the 40 TP, which is really the only Polish tank you would want to train crews for, maybe with the Pudel. As usual, these are 100% crews, top modules, and no equipment or paint on the tanks. So the overall firepower number, it's near the top, not quite as good as a Cromwell B, but let's break down those numbers because that's a wargaming number on what their best guesstimate is on the overall power of the offense of the tank, firepower-wise. The Alpha is low, 135, not quite as low as an EZ8, and the Pen is high at 150, not quite as good as the 40 TP, but right up there. We'll talk about gold rounds a little while later. So this thing is about penetration and spitting rounds downrange. 14.9 on the rate of fire rounds per minute. Again, not as good as the two Sherman variants or even the Cromwell B, but pretty darn close. Reload time is fast at 4.03. We'll get easily down into the 3-second regime with the various bonuses and additions you can put on it, like a rammer and whatnot. Turret traverse speed is actually kind of slow. So this is going to be a bit of a problem when you're being circled, although if you turn the hole in the turret, it should be no real issue with this tank. Gun depression at -8, that's approaching very comfortable at -10. Anything less than -8 can be a little bit painful. Really, -8 is about that breaking point, with -10 being really nice and more being even better. But at -8, it's okay, like most of the Panther variants. You can get around the terrain and use a little bit of hold down capability like that. Aiming time is decent at 2.21. Not quite as good as the 3485, but all the rest of them are more or less the same, minus the 40 TP with the atrocious 259. Dispersion is okay, one of the better ones, so that's that German hallmark of accuracy. But if you look at it, it's 0.01 better than the guys that are right behind it, so it's not amazing, it's pretty good. But with a low dispersion and a good aiming time, this thing will aim in pretty quickly, a decently accurate gun with a 2012 DPM. Near the top, but not great. I mean, you got the 40 TP at 1767, that's atrocious. A couple guys right below it. A couple quite a bit higher at 2181, but this is a minus this outlier, the 40 TP, and maybe the 3045. The rest of them are in a fairly tight grouping right there around 2000, so not too bad. One place where it does shine is its hit points. It's got 840 hit points. That's 140 more than the Skoda, and a good number more than the next closest at 750. So another 90 over the guys at 750. So that is a good hit point pool, a very good hit point pool for a tier 6 medium. Whole armor near the top at 85. Not too bad. There's that nice side armor at 50. That helps it with the side scraping I mentioned earlier, which is why it is a competent, at tier 6 anyway, side scraper. Turret armor is good, not quite 40 TP good, but the mantlet is quite thick. And at 100, they're going to have a lot of trouble getting through there, especially if you're moving around a lot and they're firing standard rounds. Once they hit number 2, most everyone's going to go through almost anywhere on this tank. Weight load limit is okay. You can see it's got 700 horsepower, but it is a 44-ton vehicle, which is pretty awesome. Specific power 15.82. What does all that mean? It's got about a 55 kilometer an hour forward speed and a nice reverse speed of 20, so it can pull out of spots and pull in quickly and fire. With the accuracy of the gun, it is quite good at moving and shooting. Come down here to concealment. Bizarrely, it's actually pretty good compared to the rest of them, despite the gigantic size. The Fury has less concealment while stationary. I can't really figure that one out. Concealment during movement it's actually in there. So despite, like I said just a second ago, despite being a giant, it doesn't get hurt too much in the concealment department. View range is nice at 370 for a tier 6 medium. That's very nice. And signal range, everything is saturated at that level, but 741, pretty good. So what's the overall deal with the Pudel? As we look at the stats, it's going to have an accurate gun. It's going to spit a lot of rounds down range. It is a very competent rammer at tier 6, so it can really bully some of the other mediums if you're able to get in and start smashing into them. Obviously, that's a tactic, not a strategy, so you don't want to just drive out and say, I'm going to go ram people. But if you need to do it, it is quite capable of doing it, and it's got a bit of an extra hit point pool. So there is some exposure you can do with this tank, a little bit more than others, or at the very least find yourself still in the game later on, having a few more hit points than the other tier 6s might have. And a decent armor profile at tier 6, caveat, for a tier 6 medium. Let's move on to the stats. So I've played the Pudel 36 times. I've run a 56% win rate with 867 average XP. Hitting about 72%, that's actually a little bit low and surprised me a bit with the accuracy of that gun. So there's something I'm doing as far as taking shots, maybe taking way too many snapshots and things like that. I mean, 72 is fine, but with the accuracy of this gun, I was just a little bit surprised by that. 1.44 on the damage, 2.32 on the destruction. That's a very good destruction ratio. Armor at 0.32, as I always say, when you start to approach 1, the armor is really helping you. At 0.32 for a medium that sees a lot of tier 8s, that's actually not bad. Actually not bad at all. That's like carrying another 32% of hit points around on average with your tank right there. 867 I talked about. I'm dropping 1,062 a game and receiving 732. Assist 282 is a little bit low. Spotted. Enemy vehicles destroyed is 1.61, and I've managed a 2,441 damage game with 7 kills and 1 ace mastery. I've actually managed several ace masteries in this tank, especially lately. So pretty good medium tank. Let's see what we can find. If we look at the BIS, which is a one I've recently gone through, the Italian tier 6. Take a look at it. I'm dropping 1166 with that, receiving 554. All the numbers are pretty comparable. Destruction ratio is even a little higher on the BIS as a recent tank I've played. Here's one I played a long time ago. The Cheeto at 66%, 1,000 damage, received at 658. So you can see all these numbers are very comparable. So I'm playing the Pudel pretty close to what I play the rest of my tier 6 medium tanks. It's a pretty nice little tier 6 medium tank. Let's see what my setup is. I have actually moved the crew on, so the crew didn't quite ever get to its first skill. It got 100% qualified, never got to its first skill. I put it into the tier 7 and off they went. So I put a new crew in here and I played it a little bit. You can see where I've gotten them to. So it's not a great crew that I've run with to get that 56%. Obviously, results may vary, and a good crew is going to be better than a bad crew. I'm running a rammer, I've got the vents, and I have the enhanced gun laying drive. You could drop the enhanced gun laying drive and go with optics if you wanted. Regular AP at 69, I'm carrying 12 APCR. We'll talk about the pens in just a minute, and 4 HE. HE is not very useful down on these little guns. What is this, a 75 or so? 7.5, yep. They're not very useful, but a couple are on there for, you know, prayer reset kind of shots. I've got a small repair kit, small med kit, and a large fire extinguisher. I recommend in the German tanks you carry fire extinguishers. Often I'll say you can probably get away with running food, but I just do not recommend that on the German tanks. They tend to light on fire. Let's talk about that pen for just a minute. Here's the 7.5 quick 42 L70, which is a 135 alpha gun as noted, 150 regular pen, 194 with the APCR. You're getting another 44 pen, and that is actually pretty decent and will have some capability against tier 8 tanks. The more heavily armored ones, you're going to have to go for weak spots. Some of the very heavily armored, you're going to struggle quite a bit, say a 100.01, things like that, an OHO. But for the rest of the tier 7s and the rest of the tier 8s, mediums and things, number 2 is going to put you in a place where you can at least start to compete. This tank's going to want to get around to the side of people. It's not the best flanker, there ever was, but it's not bad overall, and we'll take a look at during the gameplay some of the things you can do with the Pudel. But that was my setup. Let's move on to examples of gameplay. When the Polish line first came out, I had a Pudel, and I played it maybe 30 times, 25, 30 times before that, and realized it was a decent tank, but I didn't have a whole lot of purpose for playing it. Grinding out the Polish crews was certainly something you'd want to do, but I didn't get into that too much, and I was busy doing some other things. But I picked it up when the Polish tanks came out, trying to get the crew a little bit better that I knew I was going to put into the heavy tanks, and then playing it in between on my streams, in between playing the Polish tanks, because once the Polish tank died, and if I died too early, it was locked, and I had to wait for him to come out of battle, so I'd jump into the Pudel. I had a couple of good games along the way and realized, you know what, since this whole Polish thing is going on, let's go ahead and just do a review of the Pudel, even though it's been out for a while. You can see that I have come up here on Erlenberg, and I've moved over to the east side, coming up to the hill. We've got the Type 62 moving up. We've got a Hellcat, a little bit unaware of what's going on. He's just kind of sitting there, and the first shot's going to bounce off the highly armored Hellcat, trying to get into the track right there. I do not have Sixth Sense, so more than likely I am spotted. Now, what you saw right there is that that nice -8 depression worked, and then I went up and my hull lifted up just a little bit, and I was going to not be able to put the gun on him, so I had to actually back down right there. So that's a good example of where -8's usable, but -10 would have been more comfortable because I could have snuck up there and got that shot. As it was, I had to do a little bit of adjustment, and that's what you're going to find with a -8 depression gun. You'll find yourself doing a few little more adjustments to get your shots in. So let's see how this accuracy works here. No, he moves back. Obviously, a 150 pen on the normal AP round is going to be just fine for a Hellcat, unless whatever that piece of armor I hit comes into play, which was probably the mantlet or just a really crazy angle, or maybe the gun. There's that accuracy, so I just timed that guy coming through, and it works like a champ. Not really surprised that shot missed. Quite lucky there's nobody else up there on the east side, and they're really pushing down in the middle. There's that nice accuracy once again. So I just kind of have freedom up here. Obviously they see me, or he thinks he knows where the shots are coming from. So I'm doing that little bit of that side scraping there. He backs out. And we got a 42-57 there. The 01, he's problematic. If I'm not careful, he'll pin my side, or at the very least drop 200 to 300 on me. There's a 1357 out there, and I'm going to go ahead and be aggressive. Here's the nice mobility of the Panther tank. Not speedy like a Cromwell necessarily, but it's definitely got the speed to get the job done. I dive down there at about 50 kilometers an hour, and I'm able to side scrape out. Now I'm going to use some of the side scraping capability of this tank and taking on a KV-85. And it's fairly comfortable. In another medium, you might be thinking, wow, I really need to be careful about that 300 Alpha, but I have a reasonable expectation to maybe bounce that guy. Now, I'm not going to be stupid and just drive out and say, I dare you, but I will move over here. Look at that, all moving shot. Didn't pin, but I hit him. Here's the hold down area. This guy takes a shot. I see that he's shot, so I'm just going to aim nicely in on his hatch right there. Use that nice German accuracy, take it down. I'm thinking maybe I can drown this guy. This goes a little bit more poorly than I imagined here. It takes a while to get him. And he ends up tracking me. That's a bummer. There's a bounce. That's just a poorly aimed shot. Get up to the turret there. I'm taking hits from behind. And this is going a lot worse than I would have liked. Taking a lot more damage here than I want, and I just can't quite put him down. And this is what you're going to find with a 135 Alpha. While you are spinning rounds down range, it takes a while to whittle people away, and that is quite the bummer. A nice easy shot right into the side of an 01. There's a Tog over there. Gotta be careful. I kind of expected him to back around that corner and just take me out. Now I've got an E2 coming in. Got guys all over the place. That's a bounce. He hits me. Gone to gold a while ago. There's a shot into around the base of the turret. He runs in, takes a shot. Misses. That's very fortunate because I'm able to put one right here into him, and I actually bounced that last shot that he took at me, which would have taken me down to about 50, 60 hit points. So some great examples. That was just me flailing. Some great examples of accuracy in there. Good examples of the side scraping, and that sometimes that turret armor works out. just really a hard to kill tier 6 medium, which sometimes doesn't matter a whole bunch. In general, it's easy to kill if you consider a 3-5-7. But in a case like this, you're bottom tier, but there's plenty of 6s to fight, and hurt 7s, you can actually have a pretty good day. I'm hanging out here. I've been hanging it out here in the middle of this map for quite a while. This is usually a recipe for disaster in this general area of the map, but I was able to fight them off, mainly because we owned the east side and I didn't have to worry about any shots from that direction. I didn't get a whole lot of help. End up missing the Nashorn. He is stunned. I'm a one-shot to him, so I have to be very careful. I really don't want to challenge him with my armor because he's going to go right through it, probably. He has definitely got a good chance to do it. So now I'm hoping somebody sees I've got him cornered and comes up and helps me. I can see the Type 62 moving. I just can't quite get to the top. And it looks like maybe he's trying to look at the top of my turret. You can see my little hatches poking out, so it's very possible he can get a shot on that while I can't even get a shot on him. And there goes taking a hit from my buddy, so we'll push him back. He's getting hammered. I'm thinking, well, I'll get around the side of him, but he's unlikely to survive. There he goes. And we'll just keep trucking. And we're down to 3 tanks. 3 tanks to hunt down. And I'm looking. I've never gone through this water, so I'm trying to figure out where exactly I can go through. And it looks like over here it's flat enough. Head over this way. Wait till it's the shortest direction. Shortest direction between 2 points being a straight line, and we'll go ahead and do that and move through. Speed this up because it takes me a while to get into the battle. I'm cognizant of the IS-2, but he seems to be on the other side over there. Come around through here. We've got the Cromwell trapped. And the Tog. Tog's taking hits. We've got people in every direction. This is a problematic area right here. It's kind of difficult to actually use. I'm a 2-shot to the Tog. He's not going to have a whole lot of trouble hitting me, so we're going to cross over here and see if we can get a shot on him. Unfortunately, he gets a piece of me. He just kind of watches me do this. So now I'm down to a 1-shot. Can use this building right here. He shoots, and I'm able to get in there despite the speed at which a Tog reloads. I'm able to get in there and take a shot. IS-2 tracks. No damage. And down goes the Tog. Some of that's another good example of just the angles, the German angles on this thing, and unfortunately, I miss him. Side scrape, and nice accuracy right into the corner of his tank. Down he goes. And I've got to figure out a way to get through these 2 guys. Nope, not quite. Tried to bridge the gap. I'm actually going to block myself by the way I do this. Oh. See, I got the back left corner of the Cromwell in there and was unable to push him out, so I got to find a way to do this. Jenga, and here we go. And we get through this. I don't think I have any more damage. Let's find out. Am I able to track down the... Oh, that's right. I do track him down. Unfortunately, it's a big pain in the rear. He gets a couple of my guys here. We got 3 of them, 3 of us on him. Having a bit of trouble. Also, in the accuracy sort of eludes me. Finally get a shot in on him. And he's killed my buddy. I'm just really having a hard time getting this guy. So we'll move around here. Thought about side scraping, but I really didn't want to trust the armor profile. Despite me talking about how it's a good side scraper, that is a fairly large gun. And if he's smart, he's loaded HE because he can knock me down. But there you go. We defended long enough. Ran out of time. 2,441, 300 spotting. Unfortunately, left the IS-2 alive, but discretion being the better part of valor. Plus, I just kind of forgot what time it was in the game. The victory sort of surprised me. And this pretty much encapsulated a lot of the strengths and capabilities of the Pudel right there. I probably called it a Panther a lot, but obviously it's the Pudel, the Polish version of this, or the one that's in the Polish tech tree. Let's take one more example. On the second example, we're on El Haluf, spawned into the northeast. It is an encounter battle, and my team is intent on losing a guy first every time, so there they go, success. Mission success. I'm coming up to this corner here. You notice the decent speed. I'm well ahead of pretty much everybody right there. Again, not Cromwell speed, but not bad. And the Leo misses, thankfully, because they do hit hard. And unfortunately, he's anchored that corner, which I would have really liked to have got. So I'm going to put a little angle here, maybe tuck up a bit so I'm protecting some of my hole. And if he wants to come around, I'll be ready to get some shots on him. Waiting for my friends to get up. We got a Tiger. There goes the Tiger. There goes the IS with the stock gun. And I noticed that they've gone through, so I'm going to push through here. We've got the IS, the 100, T-44 100 right there. We'll shoot him on the way, and unfortunately I do not hit him. And now we're over here with the Leo, looking for a track. There's that accuracy. Get a shot in on him when he pokes around. And I'm going to try to use the turret a little bit right here with this. Take a shot on him. I reload nice and fast, but there's a bunch of tanks down there, so I probably don't want to challenge them too much unless I know they're busy shooting other people, which they are. Unfortunately, there's so many of them that that's just a foolish push. Now the Alpine Tiger comes in. He's going to side scrape. There's also 2 artillery, so this can become very problematic for me to try to come in here and help him. He's going to want to shoot and drive forward, but I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do. Get one in there. And at that point, I think, you know what? There's so many guys stacked up there in the artillery, and we're all kind of driving out in front of each other. I'm risking taking a 390 heat shot into the back of the turret. So I'm just going to push in here at this guy. I noticed that the pilot had pushed through. Dive in here, cut in so I can avoid taking shots. And it is time to dig this Leo. If we can dig this Leo out, then we can change this fight. I would also like to avoid getting derped by the KV-2. He's looking like he wants to come around, but there's a couple guys back there that keep him honest. One shot into the 40T, or to the Leo, sorry. 2 shots and he's down. 30-45's coming out for a shot, and he misses. That nice backup speed. See that 20 km/h backup speed? Got me out of the way. Unfortunately, I missed right there. He takes a hit. And we're starting to whittle him around. There's that DPM where, and the reload speed where you just have shells flying downrange, much like a Cromwell can do. KV-2 can really hurt me if I'm not careful. Pilot's coming up behind him, but down goes one of the guys right there poking out. I get a shot in the bottom of the T-29. I get tracked by 30-485 and no damage. Again, that nice backup speed, decent armor profile. You see the tracks stick out quite a bit, and they're quite a large target right there. So you can trick them into shooting into the tracks. Notice the T-29 starts getting attacked from behind. I'm just watching him turn around. Those guys shoot, there they shoot, and now I'm just going to come in here and start farming these guys. I'm able to bounce a shot from the 30-485. Put another shot into him. The KV-2 starts to decide, you know what, I got to do something. I'm getting pushed. So I'm a little bit leery of being pushed from 2 directions right here. Kind of waiting for them. I really expected also to get hit by arty or splashed. And there goes the KV-2. So he's fired. It's over for him. I'm just going to come in, kind of no respect. Oh, I bounced. That's terrible. Little auto aim action there. We'll shoot him as we go by, and down he goes. And just keep on trucking. A little bit dangerous here if some of those TDs were sitting on that corner. But if you look at it, I can see one of them was way up there along with the M4. And there's the Scorp. So now I'm looking at the screen going, oh, all their tanks are way over there. No problem. You know, speed this up. It takes a while to find out what's going on. Trying to find the arty, hoping they were kind of out in the open, but realizing I've got to cut down here, and some of them are going after the artillery. So we'll come down low. And this is going to be a bit tricky. I stop here because I can see that artillery. It hit him once. Hit him twice and maybe 3. No, I do not get 3. Down he goes. All right. A little bit dangerous because if they were able to come up and over the sniper hill there, which used to be our sniper hill, shoot him on the way but miss, unfortunately. And that backs him off. That good accuracy right there. There's a little spotting damage. 196 added to it. Get up the hill. And this is a pretty good example of the mobility of this tank. You know, I started over here. I've gone around the whole map. I've been in the lead of the fight for most of the part, most of the fight. That reverse side scrape right there, pop out, is a pretty good tactic, and that this tank executes it very well with its armor profile. You have to be careful about getting your back end completely out though, because it's a very soft target back there. Just shoot on the way. Down goes the E25, and now we've just got this heavily armored jumbo. We'll go fast. Oh, we're going to move around this way. There goes the Scorpion. Again, that Alpha is a bit of a problem. He's moving, so his dispersion is going to be terrible. I end up missing him, but down he goes. I get the spotting on it anyway. So we're up to 1,800 with 455 assist. We'll drive up here and get some back end shots and fire, and down he goes, and we get up to 2,174. Bottom tier Pudel, showing its mobility, showing its gun depression in a couple cases, the ability to use its armor profile pretty decently, even as bottom tier if you're careful. That nice backup speed, pretty much the whole package of the Pudel right there as a bottom tier, tier 6 medium. All right, let's move on and wrap it up. Well, that's it. That is the review of the Pudel. I enjoyed this tank quite a bit. I like the Panther tanks. It's interesting, the down-tiered tier 6, Panther is usually a tier 7 tank. When they down-tier tier 7s, they bring some of their strengths with them, and they usually try to change a few things to make them work at tier 6. And this is a solid tier 6 medium. The only problem with it that is a bummer is it really doesn't have a purpose on the Polish line. Training a 40 TP crew is not really at the top of anyone's list. However, that being said, as a collector's tank, as a cool tank with a history in the game, and just as a solid tier 6 medium tank, there's nothing wrong with it, and it does carry that cool historical value with it. So if that's kind of your thing, this is right up your alley, then that's good. And not only is that good, it's a pretty good tier 6 tank. So you're not really losing anything by getting that historical tank. Most of the historical tanks have been pretty good, at least at tier. And because they're running kind of stock configurations, at least as far as World of Tanks goes, they're usually down tiered. For example, the Tigers that are tier 6 Tigers, as opposed to the tier 7 one, which gets a bunch of kind of non-historical upgrades to make it a tier 7 tank. Overall, I like the tank. I do recommend it. Again, it doesn't have a lot of purpose in the Polish tech tree, but there you go. As far as a cool World of Tanks tank, the Pudel is definitely that. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you liked this review. Let me know down below if you did, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. If there's something I can do or not do in the reviews, let me know, and we will get better as we go together. Thanks for supporting the channel, and we will see you.